With the growing popularity of digicams and the vintage digital camera look, there are an ever-increasing amount of fake, misleading cameras that are absolutely not the digicams that you want to buy. And so today I want to talk about some of the biggest differences between real and fake digicams, as well as just some things that you should look out for if you're looking into buying a digicam for yourself. Now at this point, I have quite a few videos about this misleading fake camera market, and I will link those videos down in the description if you want to learn more about the problems with these cameras and why you really shouldn't be buying these. Alright, without further ado, let's get into some of the things that you should be looking out for. Alright, the number one thing that you should check is if the camera doesn't have a brand, you should not buy it. So I kind of have these two here just as examples because they look really similar. But this one right here, you can see it's a Ricoh CX4. So Ricoh is the brand of this camera. There's also obviously Canon, Sony, Nikon, all those sorts of brands that make these types of cameras. And then if you look at this one right here, there is absolutely no brand anywhere on this camera. You can see some of the specs, 48 megapixels, 4K, which are also pretty misleading, which we'll get into in a minute. But no matter where on this camera you look, there is no brand on this. And that's because these are basically widely manufactured, drop-shipped cameras that all types of sellers basically source these cameras from the same place, and then they'll pretty much put their own brand and their own specs on the listings on their Amazon pages or wherever they sell these at. And then they'll basically just sell these cameras as their own. A lot of times they'll even change the specs around on the listing just to make it seem like it's a better quality camera or more intriguing. They'll use completely fake marketing photos to show the quality and what they look like. So again, the number one thing to look for is just to make sure your camera has a brand. You know, whether it's Canon, Sony, Ricoh, Leica, Kodak, Panasonic, you know, as long as it has some sort of brand that you've heard of their other cameras in the past, it's probably gonna be fine and it's gonna be a legit digicam like these are. And so I kind of already talked about how a lot of these specs are fake because the sensors and the lenses and stuff they use in these cameras are basically just from old webcams. Like they're these terrible quality, really low resolution sensors that are absolutely nothing like actual camera sensors and lenses that, you know, companies like Ricoh actually put time and effort into perfecting the colors and the look of these and the sharpness and everything out of them. These cameras, they literally just slap in these old webcam sensors that don't have any sort of optical zoom. They just kind of crop in digitally. And most of the time, real digicams also use CCD sensors, which are this older sensor type that have really, really awesome colors. And that's really one of the biggest things that give these the digicam look. Again, these fake ones just don't use those types of sensors at all. And especially the majority of people that these cameras target, which are beginners just getting into photography that want a really cool look like this, they just aren't gonna know this difference. And that's why these are such high selling, such popular cameras, even though they're absolutely just terrible. All right, next up, this one, I mean, you can probably tell right away by looking at these. These real ones are built so much better, and mainly the reason for that is these cheap brandless ones that you can buy off Amazon or Temu brand new for like $50 to $100 are being sold for that price brand new, you know, from the manufacturer. So obviously they're not going to sell it unless they have some sort of profit margin on that. And so the build quality of these and just everything about them, the materials they use, you know, like I said, the sensors and lenses they use are just absolutely terrible trash quality. Meanwhile, most of these digicams, you know, these cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars when they were new. And obviously the companies put in a lot more effort, a lot more money into building these. Even though now that they're, you know, 10, 20, 30 years old, you can pick them up for about the same price as these. $50, $100, maybe even less than that sometimes. The only catch is you can only buy these used since they are 10, 20, 30-year-old cameras. So they're also a little bit trickier to come by. You kind of have to look at, you know, places like garage sales, thrift stores, or even online places like eBay or maybe KEH or MPB.com as well. And I will have links to some of those places down in the description if you want to check them out. But really the best place to find these digicams are garage sales, thrift stores, secondhand stores, flea markets, and things like that. And I do think that's a big reason why a lot of people just go for these ones that you can get overnighted from Amazon for, you know, like I said, $50, which seems really intriguing, again, especially if you don't really know the differences between them. And so I hope that kind of breaks down the biggest differences between these and why you really should not buy these cameras. But I do hope this video helped you out. If it did, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to my channel. And I'm also working on a video right now about a bunch of these real digicams that you can pick up for less than $100. But that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.